Hey everyone, welcome to the video. This morning, go over some of my favorite plays for tonight's 5-game NBA slate for tonight on Draftkings. And before we continue, if you could leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out, really appreciate it. You also follow me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16. And if you're interested in the spreadsheet I build every single night for the NBA season, all the up-to-date information you need, I do update it throughout the day up until lock, projections, cheat sheets, all the stats you need, and my Slack chat. Links below in the description below for my Patreon, and I think that's about it. I say we get right into the video. So I'm just going to talk about the guys I'm looking at as of right now. It's 10 o'clock in the morning, so obviously things will change throughout the day. And a lot of what I'm doing right now is pretty much just guesswork. But, I mean, just for some injury situations. But the clear spend up, and I think the guy you're going to have to plug in on this slate, there's enough value to do so. It's Giannis at 11,700. He's the most expensive guy on the slate, but it's deservedly so. The guy has been an absolute monster so far this season. He's averaging a massive 1.87 fantasy points per minute. That's incredible. It's the second highest on the slate. It's Kawhi, and he's probably not even going to play today. And it's at 1.64, so that's a pretty substantial difference. And I mean, 1.87 points per minute, that's insanely good. We've also seen him constantly in the mid to upper 30 minutes, which is also great for a guy like him because typically you don't get big minutes out of Giannis because he's just very efficient when he's on the court. You know, he's usually in the lower 30s, but he's averaging 33 minutes per game right now. And, I mean, the past few games, he's got 36 minutes, 36, 36. So, I mean, it's pretty encouraging to see. And if you just do really simple math, like I said, he's averaging 1.87 points per minute and about 33 minutes per game. He's averaging 61.8 points per game for fantasy purposes, and that's awesome. And he does a fantastic matchup versus a Chicago team who's just downright awful versus big men. And not like he's a center or anything, but, you know, power forward, whatever. And they've really struggled versus power forwards or centers, so this is a great matchup for Giannis here. They are the worst rebounding team in the league right now, and he's already averaging 14 rebounds per game, so he should be able to smash here. And on top of that, he's averaging 30 points per game, 7 assists, and like I said, 14 rebounds, and he's got triple-double upside every single night. He's also elite at picking up blocks, steals, whatever. He does all the peripheral stats, and he scores, so there's nothing not to like here. I guess really the only thing there's not to like is the price tag, but he's pretty easy to fit in tonight. He's the top spender for me, and he's my highest projected player on the slate by about 10, so I'll try to find a way to get him in despite this price tag. He's got 34% usage rate, and the Bucks have, I believe, a 121-point team total, which I looked earlier in the morning, so I'll have to see if that's still correct, but it's really up there. The Bucks should score a lot of points here. The only concern here would be if the game gets out of hand, but I believe it's like a 10-point spread right now, so either way, I think Giannis is fine. If he doesn't get like mid-30s minutes, I think he's going to be very efficient while on the court. And it wouldn't surprise me if he was averaging about 2 points per minute. I mean, his games this season, it's incredible. I mean, he's had 30 real-life points in, 5 straight games, 35, 30, 38, 34, 36. It's insane. In the past games for fantasy, 62, 60, 81, 61, 77. I mean, the guys have just been incredible. I mean, he's got 80-point upside like we saw versus the Clippers. So you got to like Giannis here. Very expensive, but he's the clear spend up on the slate, and he's got the highest ceiling by far. So I would look to plug him in. You can always play Luka. You can always play Trae Young. Trae Young has been incredible, especially since coming back from the injury. I mean, 68, 65, 61. There's nothing bad I can say about him. Just personally, I don't usually play Trae Young. I mean, obviously he's been great, and I guess it would be a mistake not to, but he's never really that high owned, so it doesn't really matter. But because I'm mainly just a single entry cash guy, so I mean, I'm not missing out on anybody if they're 3% owned. But I mean, he's been incredible. So if you want to play Trae Young, you can. It's a pace-up spot versus Phoenix, although they've been pretty good defensively this season besides big men. So I don't have too much interest in Trae Young, but it's not going to surprise me if he drops another 60 fantasy points because the guy's just been absolutely incredible. Kawhi Leonard, he should be resting today, which we'll talk about in a little bit. That opens up a lot. Kyrie Irving, he's possibly out, which will open up some other potential plays like I'll talk about in a little bit. But Nikola Jokic at 8,600, I think he's a very, very good play today, and I love him tonight. And he's someone I definitely wanted to get in my lineups as of right now. First off, his price is still pretty suppressed for where it should be. He should be in the mid 9K range in my opinion, so we are getting a buy low price here, and it's an awesome matchup versus the Nets, who we always love to use big men against. He hasn't been absolutely awesome this season, I gotta say that. A lot of people are saying he looks slow, sloppy, whatever. But he's bounced back recently from a 3-game stretch of rough outings where he had 43 points last game, 42, 57. But, you know, he had a pretty rough stretch of 25, 35, 30, 46 isn't bad, but then 33. I mean, we know he's got upside. He had 66 versus Phoenix, and that's actually the last time I played Jokic. So maybe if the trends continue, he's going to have another big game tonight because I'm looking to play him. It was a good matchup versus Phoenix, too, and he also did very well versus Philly. But this is a great matchup versus Brooklyn, like I was saying. They're 28th versus opposing centers, and they've given over 60 points per game to them. And obviously, that's going to include bench players, but I think Jokic should have a fine game here. And also, Denver typically plays pretty slow. They're actually the 6th slowest team in pace of play this season, but this is a big pace-up spot for them versus Brooklyn, who plays at the 2nd fastest pace of play of the season so far. So it's always nice getting guys in pace-up spots. And he always poses a nightly triple-double threat as well. So Nikola Jokic, I think, is a pretty fine option tonight. And he's relatively cheap, too, for his kind of upside. Obviously, it would hurt the game as a whole just if Kyrie Irving's out because, I could see Denver getting to a lead and not really having to push it too much. But either way, I think he's still fine. He's only 8,600, so it's not like he's 10K or 11K or whatever. And we're banking on 60 points. If he gets me, 45 plus, I'll feel pretty good about that, which I think he can definitely do. Drew Holiday, I think he's interesting. I'll get back to him in a second, but I do want to talk about Paul George here at 7,900. So we're on the second night of a back-to-back, so I'm going to assume Kawhi Leonard is out. There's nothing official on that, but that's what everyone's saying, and that's what I would expect would happen as well. And the cool thing is we got Paul George returning from injury here, so it's his first game as a Clipper, and he's also pretty cheap given the fact Kawhi will be off the court, because I believe Kawhi's in the mid-9K range, so George is relatively cheap here, and we know the guy's got upside. And I definitely want pieces from this game because the Clippers travel to New Orleans, who we always love targeting for fantasy purposes. They're top 3 in pace of play and are giving up the 4th most points to all positions in the league right now. So we will definitely want some Clippers in our lineups tonight, and especially because this matchup is great. If George was known as the main guy for this team, he'd be much more expensive, and I expect him to get around 30 minutes in his first game back. And by that, I mean, if Kawhi Leonard was already out, Paul George would probably be a little bit more expensive here. 7,900, I think it's a pretty fair price. Now, obviously, it should be he's expected to play, but you never know. But I mean, it's his first game back, so we'll see how he's used. But he should get around 30 minutes, and at 7,900, we know the guy's got insane upside. So Paul George at 7,900, I think he's a pretty interesting play there. Next guy I want to talk about is his teammate Lou Williams, who's right below him at 7,700. So he's a GPP play only for me, I think. I do think he's a bit expensive here at 7,700. If he was in the low 7K range to mid 6K range, I'd definitely have a lot of interest here. A lot, but 7,700 is a tough price to pay for him. But I think he's fine. We know he's got a ceiling, and if shots are falling, we can have huge games. I mean, we've seen 58-point game out of him. But the rest, that's what I'm saying is a GPP play because, we've seen 20, 30-point games more realistically, but we know he has upside at 58 and 46 like we saw, and this would be the matchup for him to do so. It's just I don't like the price at 7,700, but this is the kind of game where you could see him having a pretty one of the ceiling games because no Kawhi, and it's a high-paced, bad defensive squad versus the Pelicans. And New Orleans is 30th versus point guards and 22nd versus shooting guards. He's getting over 30 minutes per game and is over a point per minute, and off the bench he's getting a 30+% usage rate. So Lou Williams, he does make sense. I just wish he was a little bit more cheaper, but I think he's fine for GPPs. I'm not sure I'll be able to get there in cash games, but he's got upside for sure. Brandon Ingram at 7,500. So just another piece of this Clippers-New Orleans game. So I always have interest in him with Lonzo being off the court, despite the matchup that we have here. It's a little bit tougher, but Kawhi Leonard obviously being out helps that. When Lonzo is off the court, we see Ingram's usage rate go over 30%, and he's averaging over 1.3 points per minute, which is pretty darn good. Pelicans also play zero defense and play extremely fast, 3rd fastest in the NBA, so this usually leads to high-scoring, fun fantasy games. And because, if they're giving up a whole bunch of points at a fast rate, that means the Pelicans got to do the same exact thing. So I do think Brandon Ingram should have a pretty good game here. Now, he's a game-time decision at the moment, so obviously we're not sure if he's going to play, but if he's in, it's awesome. The Clippers defense does take a hit with no Kawhi Leonard, so it would be a big boost for Ingram here because he would definitely see a lot of Kawhi Leonard right across from him. Now, we've seen big games out of him this year, and it wouldn't surprise me if he did again with the highest over-under Vegas game for this game for Vegas tonight. That's sitting at 234.5 with only a 5-point spread, so it should be pretty back and forth. And if Brandon Ingram is in, I think we can expect a pretty big game from him. And he's only 7,500 too, so price came down a little bit. He was at 8,100, 8,000, had 2 40-point games in a row. Now, I think he would be a pretty fine option if he's in, but we'll have to see how the knee feels after a shoot-around or whatever. Now, Drew Holiday, he comes in at 8,200, so he's a little expensive here. But if Ingram happens to miss, Holiday is going to be completely run this offense here with no Lonzo, Ingram, or Josh Hart. So he would firmly come into play here, and we saw him get 38 minutes last game. He had a 31% usage rate, which was up from the low 20s he was sitting when Ingram was out. So he would become a really strong play if Ingram is out, because I'd expect his usage rate to be above 30%. He's going to run the show here, should get mid to upper 30s minutes in the 30s. I'd expect him to get over 40 fantasy points. So Drew Holiday, he would become an excellent play in that game. Then I think we're going to go to some more value plays at this point because I talked about a lot of higher end guys and some more mid-range guys. So let's talk about DeAndre Bembry first at 3,900. So the Hawks are going to have an injury situation here with Kevin. Starts with an H. I forget the last name at the second, but anyway, there's an injury. So DeAndre Bembry becomes a pretty strong play here. The guy that was injured was seeing about 25 to 30 minutes per game, so it opens up some minutes for someone like Bembry and for other guys on the team too, like Reddish and whatever. But I'll definitely have interest in him tonight below 4K. I will say he's really struggled recently, and it's not like his minutes weren't there. He's seen minutes in the mid-20s, and so had a 40-minute game recently, and he had a 30-minute game as well. But he hasn't really done anything. He hasn't busted out of the teen point range for fantasy since November 5th. Also, his usage rate was below 10% the past 2 games. He's cheap though, and Phoenix plays fast, so if he gets his 30 minutes and produces his average 0.78 points per minute, then I think he should have no problem hitting value here. I mean, the minutes were already good. Now we got an injury. I think he can get you over 20 fantasy points, and it's not like he's expensive. He's 3,900, so he doesn't need to do much to hit value here. I could see him getting 20 to 25 points here. Obviously, he's had some pretty big games this year. Trae Young, being out might have helped that, but he had a 46-point game versus Miami, 28 minutes. So if he can do something similar to that, I'm not saying like he's going to get 40-some points, but I think he can get you 20 to 25 points, and you'll take that at 3,900. So I do think Bembry's a pretty fine play there. Spencer Dinwiddie at 5,700. So like I said, Kyrie Irving is dealing with an injury right now, so we're not sure if he's going to play. But if not, Spencer Dinwiddie becomes an excellent play here. So we have to wait for some news to drop. But LeVert's out. Kyrie Irving's questionable with a shoulder impingement. So I mean, it could be the Spencer Dinwiddie show here. He's been pretty darn good the past few games. He had 50 points, 32 points, 27 is not that great, but it's not horrible either. As of right now, if we assume Kyrie plays, he should still get close to 30 minutes. And should get close to 30 minutes, and if not, he should see mid-30s, and we will see his usage rate spike because LeVert and Irving soak up a ton of usage, both around 30. Kyrie Irving's obviously above 30%. Karis LeVert's pretty close to it, so he's going to be the main guy here. And while he's not free, he has huge upside here at a fair price and would become an elite option despite a tougher matchup versus the Nuggets. So Spencer Dinwiddie, I think he'd become just one of the best plays on the slate at 5,700 of all those if Kyrie Irving is out, because he's just going to have a high usage rate. He's going to run the show here. Wouldn't surprise me if he got 40 fantasy points. So Spencer Dinwiddie, I would obviously have interest in. Kendrick Williams at 4,700. So another guy that's dealing with, or not 4,700, 4,500, my bad. But another guy, he could benefit from some injuries here. He's already going to see an uptick in minutes with Hart out, but if Ingram is out, he will see a fantastic option. He will be a fantastic option because he will see a boatload of minutes, more than likely in the mid-30s. And, last game he saw 38, and the game before that he saw 28. But if Ingram's out, I mean, he should see a ton of minutes here. He's on the year. He's averaging 0.87 points per minute, and if he sees over 30 minutes, he should be able to pay off his price tag pretty easily here. I want pieces from this game. He's a pretty cheap option. Last couple games, we've seen 33 points and 25 points. 4,500. He's got over 30-point upside here, so wouldn't mind taking a shot at him at 4,500. Then I think just one more guy here. We're going to talk about JaMychal Green at 4K. So he's actually coming off two pretty good games in a row. No Leonard, so just more minutes to others. But Paul George being back means there's not a free 30 minutes or so to go around. So it does muddy the water here a little bit. But Green should still be a fine play at his price tag versus a New Orleans team. And he's been great the past 2 games. He scored 29 points and 40 points just last night, where he saw 32 minutes, which was great. As of right now, I got him a little above 25 minutes, and he's been around a point per minute guy this season. So another 30 points isn't out of the question, especially versus New Orleans, who is 17th versus small forwards this season and 28th versus power forwards. Plus, we got a high-paced game, and I want pieces from it. So JaMychal Green, he does make some sense. And actually, just one more guy I was on my radar a little bit. So Alex Lonnie's listed as questionable, but he should be able to. Actually, he's listed as probable. So I expect him to play, and if he gets about 20 minutes is what I have him for right now. I mean, we've seen minutes from 11, 22, 15, 22. I think he's fine. I mean, Phoenix they're a pretty good defensive team, but the one spot they do struggle against is big men. So if he's going to give me 20 minutes, I think he can get you about a point per minute here. So at 3,600, I think he's a decent play. So Alex Lonnie, I don't hate him either, and he's on a short list for me. But anyways, that's going to be it for this video. Now remember, things can change throughout the day just with the news dropping, so obviously a whole slate can change and I can like some other plays. So just keep that in mind. Like I said, if you are interested, my spreadsheets are available in the link in the description below, which I update throughout the day, so you get my most up-to-date information. You can get my Slack chat where you can ask me questions all day or just hang out. And yeah, I think that's going to be it. So if this video was helpful, remember to leave a like. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Really helps me out. Really appreciate it. Also follow me on Twitter at ChrisPanel16. And I'll see you guys in the next video.